Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, I have to admit, I'm incredibly excited about today's episode. Because if I was to tell you that Metaphysics is building AI tools and resources that creatives, entertainment industry and brands need to develop hyperreal content and tell incredible stories, you'll probably go, yeah. If I also added the software being developed by Metaphysics, mix and remix proprietary and open source AI models and integrate traditional production workflows, you'd probably go, yeah, you're losing me a little bit there. But if I told you these are the guys behind the deepfake Tom Cruise videos that went viral last year, you'd probably go, oh, now you have my attention. So I want to open your eyes to a whole new world today and explore the art of the possible and where we're heading. So today I'm going to explore how this decentralized production process can generate exponentially more hyperrealistic content without extra time and cost, and how the team is already working with such brands as South Park, Gillette and the Belgian Football Association. I think we've got a lot to get through. And we'll also tackle the topic of what happens if this technology was to get in the wrong hands too. We'll cover everything. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to San Francisco, where Tom Graham is waiting for us at 3 a.m. in the morning. So let's not keep him awake any longer and get him onto the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Tom. Can you tell the listeners a little about your journey, how you got here, and maybe share your origin story for everyone listening?
Hey, thanks for having me. So I started a company called Metaphysic with my co-founders, Chris, Kevin, Martin, and basically we create hyperreal synthetic media using AI generative algorithms that look super real. So if you've seen maybe Deep Tom Cruise on TikTok, that's our work, and it's a great example of AI algorithms generating the content with such a fidelity that many people initially can't tell the difference between kind of deepfake Tom Cruise and real Tom Cruise. And so origin stories wise, I'm from Australia. I was a lawyer. And then I went to law school in the US also and became a New York bar attorney kind of thing. Practiced that for a while, but then went back to do a PhD in internet and society stuff and didn't do that. Instead, at MIT, I started a GPU and memory database company with a friend. And that became a company called Omnisci, now just rebranded to Heavy.ai in San Francisco. And where I am currently now. And then after I left that company, started a few more companies, did a lot of stuff in the crypto space, advisory and investing and company building. And then I've been tracking kind of synthetic media and deepfakes and AI generative content for some time. And I was kind of like really interested in what happened when it became hyperreal, when it was so good that you couldn't tell the difference between something created by a computer and something that was like shot with a camera in real life. And so much faster than I expected, my co-founder, Chris Umi, dropped basically his Deep Tom Cruise collaboration with the performer, director, actor, Miles Fisher. And I was fooled, I have to say. I just kind of, wow, Tom Cruise is on TikTok. That's unlikely. Why does he look so young? Oh, I know what's happening now. Okay, amazing. And so I rang up Chris and we started a company a few weeks later.
Wow, what an amazing story. And it must have really blew up there because those videos were viral just about everywhere, weren't they?
Yeah, I think it almost certainly has billions of impressions and has reached hundreds of millions of people at the very least. I think there were at least 150 news articles from many countries around the world written about it. The important thing about that is what we're doing is kind of creating an alternate reality in some ways. And people try to use this same technology to create political disinformation or other harmful uses of deepfake to try to fool people, maybe to fraud people. And the potential for harm there is vast. And it's important that basically we work really hard to generate public awareness for what is possible in terms of manipulated media today. So if people see Deep Tom Cruise and they think, oh, that's so interesting, that's joyful and fun and irreverent, but also the next time I see something that doesn't look quite right, or if I see some, Joe Biden declaring war or something like that, I'll take a beat before passing that on, before becoming outraged, before turning it into viral content and really serving the purposes of the malicious actors who are trying to manipulate media in order to cause harm or affect a specific outcome. So that's kind of our role and our purpose with Deep Tom Cruise. But it fits nicely into kind of the metaverse and everything that we're doing there also.
And I'm curious, just on that topic before we move on, are there any telltale signs that people should look for if they're a little bit suspicious about content that they're watching? Or is it getting harder and harder to tell?
I think that there are very few people, no one really can do hyperreal to the extent that we can do it. And that means that whenever you see something that looks CGI-ish or kind of a little bit uncanny, then that's kind of the first indication. It's just a kind of an emotional reaction that something's a little bit not quite right with what you're looking at. And so that comes across, you see a lot of that stuff on the internet. More or less everything you see and stuff that you see in movies is pretty much like that. So luckily, there isn't too much hyperreal stuff out there today, and it hasn't really been tested. But algorithmically, in terms of detection, it's very, very hard to do at the level of hyperreality that we can produce.
And as we get to the exciting stuff, can you tell me a little bit more about how you're helping creators process data sets, mix and reality proprietary and open source AI models while integrating traditional production workflows? Because that seems to be where the magic is happening and where the excitement is coming from.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we do, really. It is a confluence of data science, working with deep neural nets and very complex algorithms that take a long time to train on very large data sets. It's kind of that iterative data science process mixed in with traditional VFX, which is to say that is a set of tools and techniques to deliver really compelling, good quality content. And in this case, we're trying to achieve stuff that looks very real, just like you would in a movie when you're trying to do CGI. And so the VFX skills are important in terms of working with the data set and understanding how to get better inputs to feed the algorithms to get better outputs, and then how to mix the algorithmic outputs with, say, destination footage, destination clips, which are shot with cameras. Like, for instance, Deep Tom Cruise, it's the head that is replaced, but the body is the performance of Miles Fisher. So how to bring these two things together, that's our goal as a company, really. We build the technology to automate the process of creating this hyperreal synthetic content and delivering it through, metaverse content experiences, etc.
And before you came on the podcast today, I recently read about your plans to expand Metaphysics' groundbreaking work in pushing the boundaries of those digital experiences we've just talked about, including focusing on pioneering synthetic content creation tools for emergent metaverse worlds. Incredibly exciting. You hinted at it a few moments ago, and there is a lot of hype around the metaverse at the moment. But can you expand on this direction you're taking too?
Yeah, so I think that, personally, I think that in 10 years or so, most of our internet interactions, things that we do on the internet, access to services, e-commerce, online shopping, this Zoom call, for instance, will be conducted in kind of metaverse platforms with a highly visual layer. So we may be kind of doing this call through 3D and we're in one shared space and our avatars will look exactly like us. So these environments, they'll be hyperreal. And you can imagine that if you're trying on a dress in the Gucci store, you are going to want to do it as yourself with your own body to see what it really looks like, as opposed to your unicorn head fancy avatar from your gaming metaverse. And so work, school, parent-teacher interviews, more or less everything in the internet that we do today will be mediated through hyperreal content. And that content will be created by AI algorithms training on real-world data sets that we collect from the world around us, our face, our voice, everything that makes us uniquely individual, and then also our private spaces and environments around us. So that's what I think the internet is going to look like. What we do at Metaphysic is try to build the technology to deliver those hyperreal content experiences and allow other people to create them. Gaming companies, Zoom, everybody who creates content on the internet or mediates the process of content creation. And so there's one thing that's really important there when you extend that idea of hyperreality into our everyday internet kind of experience, is that us as humans, as individuals, if we don't want to be in front of a camera, if I want to stop talking now, I just walk away. There's nothing, I'm in control of who I am in the physical world. And in the digital world, if we upload our data and allow companies to create synthetic hyperreal versions of us where a viewer couldn't tell the difference between me in real life and me on the screen, then we have to work out ways to ethically integrate safeguards into the process of creating hyperreal synthetic media such that individuals are still in control of who they are and what they do in this new hyperreal kind of paradigm. And so we launched a product called Every Anyone, which you can find at everyany.one. And basically anybody can come and create their own hyperreal synthetic avatar. It looks exactly like themselves, but it's a programmable AI model where you can manipulate the latent space and age yourself and de-age yourself and change your gender, change your hair, and everything like that. That's manipulating the latent space of the model, not just kind of like filters. And then you can control and own your own data, just like you own the IP to like a Bored Ape, NFT, etc. And so you create this NFT of yourself, and then in the future, you'll use that to log into third-party content experiences in the metaverse and give them permission to create the hyperreal synthetic version of you inside their content experience. So if you want to go to a Lady Gaga concert in the metaverse, you'll log into that concert platform with your NFT, and then they'll rest assured that, they have permission to actually create a hyperreal synthetic version of you, and you can control that and be in the content, be in the concert, be up on stage, be the performer, kind of do anything with, generative content. And so really the hardest thing is working out how to empower individuals to be in control of who they are in this new emergent paradigm. The internet, when the internet looks so much like reality, it's hard to tell the difference.
Oh man, as soon as we finish this podcast, I'm going straight there to create my avatar. What was the URL again?
Everyany.one. And so actually we're opening up the functionality to be the first people to create that avatar. I'll put you on the list in about 2 months or so. And so today you can come and join the community, and we will, we're kind of bringing together the community today, and in 2 months, the people who are there currently will be the first people to create their own hyperreal synthetic avatars and get unique, interesting kind of NFT content and collaborations that we're working on also. There's some crazy stuff. You can take your avatar and then you could kind of blend it with, say, Frida Kahlo, a hyperreal version of Frida Kahlo. So it's, it's you plus Frida Kahlo. It's you with the monobrow in the style of Frida Kahlo. But all of these avatars that you create, or you could blend with AI algorithms, if you have one as an NFT created by our platform, it's kind of future-proofed, and you can play that character yourself, or the fictional character you plus Frida Kahlo, or you could play Frida Kahlo if you buy one of those hyperreal avatars of Frida Kahlo. You could play that in any game. You could be that in any Zoom. Anywhere in the metaverse, you could be this hyperreal hybrid person or real person. It's interesting.
Oh, how cool is that? And of course, for many people listening, they'll think all this, everything we're talking about here is stuff of the future and it's years away yet. So just to bring to life everything that we're talking about, can you share a few examples of how hyperreal synthetic media is already being used in a number of ways?
Yeah, so I think that it's relatively hidden when we see it today. So you can think of many Instagram filters use similar types of technologies to apply a filter to your face in kind of real time. And they may be models trained on adding a beard or a specific set of attributes onto a face and creating a new image there. They're primarily the kind of user-generated applications that you see today. There are also some really great fun apps like Wombo and Reface, which allow you to take, a very simple image of yourself and kind of apply it in a cheap fake, in a kind of a crude way, or animate an image of yourself to sing a song. And the algorithms that do that, similar types of algorithms, but we're talking about.
Wow. And if we do look in that virtual crystal ball, what kind of hyperreal virtual experiences do you expect people that are listening to this podcast today all over the world, what are they going to be creating in a few years' time, do you think?
So unfortunately, probably people will be going to the DMV and renewing their licenses in some kind of hyperreal metaverse world in the future, right? And you'll be interacting with kind of a hyperreal chatbot processing your stuff, right? It's kind of, you can imagine anything that you do on the internet. Would it be better and easier if it was done face-to-face with a real person? Anything that falls into that category will probably eventually end up in some kind of hyperreal content experience in the internet. So lots of services. The fun stuff, though, not the lame stuff, will be, you can create your own hyperreal synthetic avatar and play yourself in a game. Or you could be streaming Star Wars on Disney Plus, and you log in with your wallet, and up pops the icon that says, which character would you like to play? And you click on Luke Skywalker, and then it automatically puts you into Star Wars in the role of Luke Skywalker. You can imagine that that's taking data from your face and your movement, and it is applying it over the top of the Luke Skywalker layer in that content. So really, we're talking about kind of importing humanity into the digital world and making content experiences programmable. So when they're programmable, they can interact. People can create all kinds of weird and wonderful things. And I'm sure that reality will be stranger than, fiction. It'll be stranger than Real Player One. It'll be really interesting.
Oh, man, you've got me excited now. So how far away will that seamless transition between the metaverse and real life, how far away are we from that being a reality, do you think?
So there are lots of limits in terms of technology today. Quality of VR and AR immersive kind of headsets and displays. That is one issue. Bandwidth is another issue. Quality and scalability of AI algorithms, availability of data for data sets, representation inside data sets. Currently, ethically sourced data sets don't tend to include a lot of diversity from around the world in terms of recreating hyperreal versions of people from everywhere around the world. So I think that there are very many companies and people trying to solve those problems as fast as they humanly can. I would say that we'd start to see really interesting, compelling, hyperreal, personalized content experiences pop up in the metaverse in the next 6 to 12 months. And they'll be simple things. It'll be kind of like something you can do on Anyone, where you take a hyperreal synthetic version of yourself and you blend it with Frida Kahlo, and you make a Tom version of Frida Kahlo, but it's personalized. It's an interactive kind of synthetic media experience on some level, even if it is just kind of like a PFP, a profile picture like the NFTs you have today. So things will start like that, and they'll move quite quickly. I think in 5 years, we will be conducting Zoom calls like this in 3D immersive environments, which we have created based on our own personal and private spaces using data that we've collected from those spaces using cameras. And we'll be in there as our hyperreal synthetic selves, as avatars. And hopefully we are actually still providing the voice and the interaction ourselves. It's not just like a chatbot, two synthetic chatbots talking to each other in a hyperreal space with no one watching. Hopefully it's not that.
And of course, many people listening will be concerned about the impact that tech could have in the wrong hands and nefarious purposes that or use cases that could arise because of it. So is that something that you are mindful of? I know we've hinted and talked about it at the very beginning of the podcast, but where do you feel about that, and what happens once this technology is out there?
Yeah, we've been involved in this set of technologies and deepfakes from the very beginning, and really ethics and a responsible rollout of this technology is core to the fabric of what we do at Metaphysic. And so from that point of view, it's very important that we help individuals control their own data and give consent to how they are represented in hyperreal content experiences. But it's also very important that we think about how the technology is rolled out so that it is not very freely and easily available to any anonymous person who would like to use it in order to create hyperreal versions of people in order to defraud people or to spread misinformation. Deepfake pornography is a particularly harmful and insidious format of harm that can come from format of media that can come from this kind of technology. And so we have to work hard as an industry and as a society to responsibly roll out the technology, and then also think about, raising awareness and kind of inoculating the virality of this type of content, because the people who see it may be more aware to the fact that it might be fake. And we have to be really diligent and thoughtful. And that's a little bit of a shift from the way in which, say, Web 2 and social media technologies were rolled out. This is a very clear and obvious set of technologies that can render harm immediately and permanently to people. And so we have to be really deliberate in how we do it.
And what excites you most about the road ahead? There's so much going on. We're all exploring the art of the possible together, but what excites you about that future and where you're heading with Metaphysic, of course?
So, yeah, we're doing some really interesting things where we can re-enliven someone from the past. We're not quite bringing them back from the dead, but if you were to kind of interact with them or see the hyperreal content of somebody who has passed away, maybe someone who's particularly famous like Frida Kahlo, it's very, very immersive because it looks so real. And so that concept of creating original novel content and content interactions with someone who has passed away is really interesting. And you can imagine in the future, you can kind of build models of your grandparents and people before they pass away in a way that you can continue to interact with them and have that emotional connection on some level. Then, extending that idea of emotional connection and empathy, which comes with hyperreal content experiences, which mimic real life content, real life experiences in terms of immersion and emotional depth. Being able to expand people's horizons through hyperreal content experiences in a way that they can experience, what other people are going through around the world and build empathy. That, I think, is a particularly interesting use case of this kind of thing. Imagine walking a mile in the shoes of a refugee, at the same time that the refugee is actually doing it, and everything around you looks real and it's super immersive. That is maybe a much more interesting way to raise awareness and think about the hardships that other people are going through. More interesting than, reading about it or hearing about it on the news, etc.
Now, before I let you go, I always like to have a bit of fun at the end of a podcast, and there's two questions I'm going to ask you here. First of all, none of us are able to achieve success without some help along the way. So is there a particular person or anyone that you're grateful towards who helped you get where you are today? And also, can you leave us with a book that has inspired you in your life? And we'll add it to our Amazon wish list, just to leave everyone listening on an inspirational note.
Great. I would definitely like to thank and shout out to our entire team who works really, really hard. We started the company during COVID, and many of us haven't met each other. And so that creates unique challenges, but also has bred, I guess, resilience and independence and a lot of creative innovation. So definitely a shout out to them. I think on the book side, something that popped into my mind when you were saying that was one of my favorite books is Catch-22. And I think I read it as a teenager, but that kind of playful prose, but the way in which that's put together, many of those like little pastiche stories all stitched together. I just remember there being a shit ton of words that I didn't know the meaning of. And I sat there with a dictionary for ages trying to work them out. And so it's kind of like a puzzle inside a puzzle. And that really stuck with me for some reason. Still one of my favorite books.
Awesome. And I'll get that added to our Amazon wish list. And before I let you go, for anyone listening wanting to find out more information about you guys or contact your team, join your community, get the name down on that waiting list, what's the best starting point for everything?
Yeah, so definitely come to www.everyany.one or metaphysic.ai. And you can join our Discord or join us on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter through those links, and all the contact information is there.
Well, I just love what you guys are doing. It's incredibly cool. And I also love your story there that began as a lawyer to working with these fake Tom Cruise videos to building a future. It's an incredible journey. I think we're only just getting started, and I'd love to stay in touch with you, see where this leads. But more than anything, just thank you for sharing that with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's really great.
As I said at the very beginning of the podcast today, Tom was actually awake at 3 a.m. in the morning to record the conversation with me. And we also encountered a few technical issues, which were due to my setup here on my side. So I cannot thank him for being such a patient and lovely guy to chat with. We covered just about every aspect around this technology. And I've got to admit, as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to that site and I will be creating or putting my name down on a list to create an avatar. Because this whole scene really excites me and channels into that inner child in me that was always excited about this stuff. And it almost feels like that iPhone moment, doesn't it? You know, if we look back at the world of tech, we had the internet and then the iPhone, and this, we've been waiting a long time for something quite special to come along, and this feels like it to me. But hey, this is just my thoughts and me getting overexcited. If you want to rein me in, if you've got anything you want to discuss, if you've got different opinions, different experiences, I want to hear them all. I'll get you on this podcast and we can share them too. This isn't just about me or today's guests. It's about you too. So keep those emails coming in. techblogwriter@outlook.com. Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes. Keep your messages coming in. Questions or pictures to come on the show, whatever it might be, and I'll get straight back to you. Other than that, I'm going to go and create that avatar now. So thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.